Today, upcoming on the BattleCry, you're not going to want to miss it because Iran is back in the target list. We have an RIP for Senator Lindsey Graham. And let's not forget the fact that Trump spoke to the nation on Thursday night. We'll do a recap. We'll see you there on the BattleCry. Hey everyone, Mark Meckler here with the Sunday Night Battle Cry. I'm excited to be with you. I hope you're excited to be with me. There is so much. I'm going to do my best to talk fast and not run over because there's a lot of stuff that happened this week. But before we start, as always, we're about action because activists are active. And so I'm going to ask you to take an action. This is your Battle Cry call to action this week. Trump gave a speech, right? Hopefully you watched it. If you haven't already, I'm going to ask you, use AI to summarize it, go back and watch it. Then tomorrow morning, I want you to pick one policy from that address, call your rep, call your two senators, and also text something to your friends about it. We'll talk more about how to use AI to do that at the end of the Battle Cry tonight. But I want you in action, not just listening, not just watching, but out there actually doing something to shape the battlefield as we move towards the midterms. Let's start where we started here, which is the Iran war, because obviously President Trump talked about that. We'll get into that address a little bit later. But the ceasefire is apparently over. It's kind of news to me because it seemed like the ceasefire was already over. I think it's interesting the diplomatic language that's used. Trump said earlier, I don't know if the ceasefire is over or not. No, the ceasefire was over. You know, when people are firing rockets at each other and sending sorties of fighters and bombers, that means the ceasefire is over. But now it is officially over. The Hormuz Strait blockade by the United States is back. What that means specifically is that no traffic in or out of Iranian ports. Interestingly, while Iran keeps firing on ships in the Strait, there is a lane that is open and relatively protected, pretty much totally protected, and that is the lane closest to Oman, Jordan, which is over on the other side of the Strait from Iran. Iran tried to get Jordan to participate in locking down the Strait in an enforcement mechanism. Jordan said no thanks. So there is a lane that's open. Oil is flowing, but now shots are being exchanged, sorties are being exchanged between the Iranians and the United States and, frankly, Gulf state nations. As you look at it right now, what's going on is that the blockade is in place. Trump first demanded a 20% tariff on all cargo going through. He quickly dropped that. It was a bad idea. I got to say, we're just going to call it like it is. It just sounded like Iran when he said that. Instead, what happened is a bunch of Gulf state nations stepped up and talked about investing in the United States of America. That's good for the Gulf states. That's good for the United States. Iran has struck bases in Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, Oman, and Jordan. So they're going off against the whole region. The interesting missing piece there that you should pay attention to is notice Iran is not striking Israel. Zero. No shots fired into Israel. I find that really interesting. I think the reason they're doing it is because they know that Israel will then just completely unleash on them. And unlike the United States with their targeted strikes, Israel's strikes are exceptionally targeted. And what I mean by that is they know where all the leadership is, and they will just go in and take out all the leadership surgically. I think they should do that. I think the United States is holding them back from doing that. I think that's ultimately going to happen. But I think this is the reason you're not seeing Iran strike Israel. Sometimes you have to pay attention to a situation and look for what's not happening, not just what's happening. That's a hole in this picture, and there is an explanation in the hole. Now, Trump said during his Thursday night address that he is going to send thousands of missiles into Iran if Iran tries to assassinate him. Do you think Iran's not trying to assassinate President Trump? Of course they are. Trump and the United States have assassinated in military strikes at least two major layers of leadership, including the Ayatollah, including the head of the IRGC, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, Iran is trying to assassinate President Trump. And there have been credible threats. The Israelis passed on some actionable intel to the United States about a credible threat. I think that's part of the reason the president changed jets on his last overseas trip. But we should pay attention to this because I don't think it's a pretext. I think the U.S. is going to have to do everything they possibly can to topple this regime at this point. I just don't think there is a negotiated way out of this. There isn't always a negotiated way out of war. In fact, until very recently, the way that wars were won is a total capitulation by your enemy. And I think that's the only way this war is going to be won. JD Vance, I think, sees it completely differently and very wrongly, in my opinion. He appeared on the Joe Rogan show this week, and in a very controversial segment, it seems like most of his ire, as always, is reserved for Israel. I find that really extraordinary. Here you have a foreign nation actually trying to kill Americans, trying to assassinate an American president, bombing our bases in the Gulf, and he's not blaming Iran. He's blaming Israeli money for paying for an influence operation to criticize JD Vance, to criticize the MOU, to undermine the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding Agreement. I should say it like this, agreement. Why? Because it never was an agreement. It was an agreement to discuss the potential for an agreement. This is the same methodology that the Iranians have been using for 47 years. Now let's talk about an agreement. We'll never keep our promises because the Iranians don't keep their promises, because radical Muslims don't keep their promises, because that's in their holy scripture. It's called taqiyya. You can, you must, you are required to lie to forward your faith. And so that's what they're doing. And they are literally just stringing things out to their own advantage, allowing them to rearm, rebuild. Satellite photos are showing that they are rebuilding in Pickaxe Mountain. You can see trucks going in and out. That's their deepest nuclear enrichment facility. You can see them digging out some of the craters where we bombed entrances to some of their facilities. They're just rearming. That's what the MOU was about for them. And they took JD Vance and made him look like a fool when he went over and tried to negotiate with him. And I hate to be graphic, but essentially they bent JD Vance over, publicly humiliated him, refused to do a photo op with him, refused to shake his hand. It was completely humiliating for the United States. And that is all on JD Vance. And for JD Vance to blame it on Israeli money operation, well, look, I've been critical of JD Vance. I'm not part of an Israeli money operation. I mean, I could tell you where to send the money if you want to, because I'm already expressing my opinion. This is true of many major players on the internet. Insurrection Barbie is somebody I follow closely. She's not part of some kind of Israeli money laundering operation, and on and on and on. So just a bad look for the vice president, a bad look for the United States of America. I think he should stop saying stuff like this. I think he should be much more reserved, much more like Marco Rubio, say, who actually is appearing strong and statesmanlike, not whining about the people who are attacking him online. JD Vance needs to kind of zip it up and man up, I would say. We had a major domestic political situation take place, which is the untimely death of Senator Lindsey Graham. And there's a few things I want to say about Senator Graham. I didn't really know him. I met him a couple of times, seemed like a nice enough guy. There have been many, many times in his political career, my intersection with him in politics, where I disagreed with him. So I'm not going to lionize him and tell you that he was some perfect senator or something like that, or perfectly ideological aligned with me or us or a lot of conservatives. On a lot of conservative issues, he was fantastic. On foreign policy, I think he's generally been very good. Sometimes we disagreed. But I will tell you, it's my opinion that losing Lindsey Graham in the Senate right now is a huge loss for America. And I'm not just saying that as a matter of rhetorical flourish or to pay the appropriate respects. I do think we should do that stuff, by the way. I'm saying it because he operated in a unique spot in the United States Senate. See, he wasn't officially in leadership, right? So he's obviously not the majority leader. He wasn't the majority whip or something like this, but he truly was a leader. Sometimes leadership is not about the position you hold from a title perspective. It's the position you hold as a leader among your peers. And Lindsey Graham was a leader among his peers. By the way, on both sides of the aisle, some people don't like this. I happen to respect it. He was definitely on a lot of issues our guy, but he was also respected by the Democrats. And some people will say, well, that makes him a bad guy. No, it makes him able to work in the United States Senate. And I don't think there's anybody else out there like Lindsey Graham that can take that seat and that can operate the way he did. Will we get a more reliable MAGA vote out of whoever follows him? Most likely. I think that's going to happen. I think that's a good thing, generally speaking. But I think Lindsey operated in a unique sphere of influence that allowed him to do things that nobody else in the United States Senate could do. And because of that, I think he's going to be missed in the United States Senate. I know my late, great, dear friend, Senator Tom Coburn, was dear friends with Lindsey Graham, disagreed with him on a lot of stuff, but they also were able to work together on a lot of stuff. And that's what made Lindsey so extraordinary. So I think it's really a bummer. His sister is replacing him. I think that's just a interesting decision. I don't necessarily agree with it. I think somebody more politically astute should be in there. I think it was done out of honor to him, and also so that that person wouldn't run. They would just be a placeholder. And now we're going to have an actual primary there to see who is going to replace Lindsey Graham. I don't think anybody's going to fill his shoes. I think somebody is going to replace him. Electorally, we also had the complete and total final meltdown of Democrat Nazi Graham Platner. I don't understand this. How did this take so long? The guy had a literal Nazi tattoo on his chest. The Democrat Party supported him. Bernie Sanders supported him. Elizabeth Warren supported him. Ro Khanna supported him. Everybody in the squad supported him. He was known for disgusting posts online, for sexually taking advantage of people, sexually abusing partners, for participating in forums that were forums for pedophilia, like a lot of bad stuff. And finally, the left decided they had enough. Did they have enough of the bad stuff? I don't think so. I think they would have been happy to support him all the way through. It's not believe all women, right? It's believe all women if they're accusing Republicans. But you don't believe them if they're accusing Democrats. The thing that caused Graham Platner to melt down was he was sliding in the polls. He was down 4 points to Susan Collins. The Democrats really wanted to take that seat. They could see the writing on the wall. He was going to lose. Now they get to nominate somebody fresh, and hopefully they think they have a shot at that seat. I think this leaves Susan Collins as the obvious favorite. I think that's a good thing for the country. I think it's a good thing for Maine. And I think it shows the true character of the Democrat Party. They're going to have their delegate convention. I think that's July 25th. 601 delegates will meet. They will choose his replacement. Whoever it is, Susan Collins is going to win. There's a fight going on right now in the Senate over RFK Jr. and HHS taking over special education. And you've got people like Senator Tim Kaine saying, zero chance we're going to move that from the Department of Education to HHS. And we now have HHS official Kelly Rogers stepping out and saying HHS is not taking over special education, period. I think that it would have been a good and welcome change to move that out of the Department of Education, to move it to Health and Human Services, to move it to Kennedy, who actually seems to care about kids and childhood diseases and childhood vaccination schedules and childhood chronic illnesses. I'd rather have Kennedy in charge of that than the Department of Education under Democrats, which is where it's going to go at some point. So there's a fight brewing on that. I think RFK Jr. is going to lose that fight. Speaking of RFK Jr., he's now being accused of interference under the Hatch Act. Hatch Act prevents sitting members of an administration using their official capacity to influence elections. And allegedly, he was working in Iowa trying to help people who were Maha candidates win in Iowa. Tuesday, July 14th, Senator Ron Wyden from Oregon filed a Hatch Act complaint against RFK Jr., alleging that Kennedy called Iowa Libertarian candidates Rick Stewart and Marco Battaglia, asking them to drop out. And this is what HHS and RFK Jr. said in response: leave it to Senator Wyden to politicize efforts to make America healthy again. Did he violate the Hatch Act? I don't know. It happens all the time. The Hatch Act gets violated, in my opinion, all the time, or people work around the edges. I don't think it was really a big deal. Staying on this subject, on the subject of Maha Health, Kennedy is now pushing to deprescribe SSRIs, traditionally known as antidepressants. I think this is a really important one because antidepressants are generally, I'm going to generalize here, not good for people. I've done a lot of research on this. If you look at virtually all the mass shooters that we know of, the mass shooters are almost all on SSRIs. SSRIs cause increased suicidal ideation. People get addicted to them. They're on them their entire lives. It affects their brain function. They're generally not good. I'm not saying, and I want to be really clear, that there's no place in our medical system for SSRIs. And I don't think Kennedy's saying that either. What he's saying is they're over prescribed, and it's time to change the clinical guidance and kind of push back on it. WAPO, Washington Post, is attacking the American Medical Association's call on their billing monopoly on this stuff. And you've got HHS trying to break that. Kennedy has been working that as well. Separate subjects. Sorry, I changed subjects on you guys. Trying to break the billing monopoly of the AMA. And he's been working on that for over 2 years now. So I think Kennedy's doing great stuff at HHS. We should deprescribe SSRIs. We should be a country that's not on massive amounts of these things all the time. And we should break the AMA's hold on the billing monopoly, the billing code monopoly. Let's open up billing. Let's allow prescriptions to fall even more and to be cheaper. Let's get people off of prescription drugs to the extent we can do so safely. One more Maha tip for you guys, or a health tip: 3 strength sessions a week, 8 hours of sleep a night, and stop the sugary drinks. And I want to give a little caveat on the strength sections. I love lifting weights. I lift a lot. I'm 64 years old. I try to lift 3 to 4 days a week at least. I love it. I haven't done it yet today, so I'll be out to the gym shortly. You should do the same thing. But I want to clarify by what I mean by this. I've been lifting my whole life. You should not lift like me. I should be lifting stronger than you. I don't care whether you're 30 or 50 or 80 or 90. You should do strength training. It's one of the best things you can do for your health. And this is going to come as a shock to some people. You should lift heavy. By heavy, I don't mean what I lift. I mean what's heavy for you. Look, that might be 20-pound dumbbells overhead, 10-pound dumbbells overhead. It might be really light for me or for somebody else who's been lifting their whole lives. It should be hard for you, right? And that's what strength training is all about. That kind of resistance training builds muscle mass. Men lose roughly 5 to 8% of their muscle mass every year after they're 30 years old. You want to maintain that muscle mass. Muscle mass increases your metabolism, increases your mental health, increases your ability to balance and your ability to function into your older ages, your ability to go up and down stairs safely, your ability to walk, your ability to carry groceries and do basic things around the house. You need to strength train. If you're not doing it, start doing it. Get a little set of dumbbells, do whatever it takes, strength train 3 days a week. Let's talk a little bit about Candace Owens, my least favorite subject, but one of the most important things we can talk about right now. With the trial of Tyler Robinson starting up with the preliminary hearing, Candace Owens has clearly lost her marbles. Now, I always thought she was doing bad stuff for kicks and money, mainly money and power and fame. That's who Candace is. I've known her personally for a long time. She will gladly put the knife in somebody else's back if she can use it as a rung on her ladder to climb up to more fame and more money. I've seen her do it over and over. She will continue to do it. At this point, I think she's evil. She's attacking Erica Kirk, the widow of Charlie Kirk, blaming her, as she has repeatedly, for Charlie's death. This week, she blamed Ben Shapiro potentially for Charlie's death. This week, she said Charlie might have been killed for refusing to participate in her assassination. I mean, it is insane, creepy, ugly, horrible stuff. The good news is her podcast views are dropping and dropping dramatically. And you have a role to play in this. Don't watch Candace Owens. Don't click or view her posts on X. I don't. I get stuff forwarded to me by other people, but I won't click on that original link because I don't want her to get credit for it. I want to see her little empire built on the pain and suffering of others come crashing down radically. I mean, some of her latest theories are Charlie Kirk wasn't shot, a microphone exploded on his chest. There's no evidence for this. You can watch the film. It doesn't look like that. There's no recoil. There's no explosion. It's just craziness. Remember, it was the French. It was the Egyptians. Of course, there's always a Jew thrown in there for good measure because she is the leading anti-Semite in America right now. Her primarily, but I would add in Tucker Carlson in that. They seem to be in league. Megyn Kelly also. Look, don't buy into this stuff. Use your own agency. Don't listen to this stuff. Deprive it of oxygen. And you might say, well, Mark, you're talking about it. You're not depriving it of oxygen. That's true, but I have a platform and it's my obligation to tell people what I think about it. And what I think about it is wholly evil. And I don't say that lightly. When I say evil, like what I really mean is evil, like as in biblical evil. That's what Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson have become. And you should avoid evil at all costs. And you should speak out against it when you get a chance. One of your kids says they listen to it, or a friend says they listen to it. Somebody at church says they're listening to this stuff. You have an obligation to call it out for what it is. This is about your faith and our faith. When we see evil, we're supposed to righteously stand against the evil. And speaking, by the way, of righteous standing against evil, there's also unrighteous standing against non-evil. And this is something I've noticed going on a lot. And my wife and I were out to dinner. We're talking about this the other night. I'm super frustrated by this, watching interfaith warfare take place right now. There's a war between the denominations. And I'm asking you, for the sake of the country, for the liberal love of God, just stop it. So I was out with my wife. We were with another couple, our closest friends, and we're talking about, why do Christians spend so much time and energy, especially right now, attacking each other over denominational theology? Like, I get it. We have real differences. Totally get it, right? I do see these things. It's not that I don't know that they exist. It's not that I'm ignorant of them. But I think going to war against each other is crazy. Like, if you want to have the conversation with a friend of yours, why they're X denomination and you're Y denomination, great. Have those conversations. But going to war online over that right now, for real? I mean, don't you think we have more in common than we have that separates us? I do. And I know that the enemy is real and he's relentless. And he is loving every single second of our division. Don't play into that. Don't do the enemy's bidding for him. Don't play into the division. We should love each other. As Ephesians 4 says, make every effort to keep the unity of spirit through the bond of peace. There is one body and one spirit, one Lord, one faith, one baptism. So let's fight the actual battles together. Like, there are real battles we need to fight together. We need to fight against the communists. We need to fight against the godless statists. We need to fight against the socialists. We need to fight against China. We need to fight against Russia. We need to fight against the Islamists. Let's stand together, because what unites us in Christ is far stronger than what separates us. Lately, I started doing this a few weeks ago. We're going to keep doing this. This is your AI tip for the week. Remember, I told you to view Trump's address or read Trump's address and then pick some things that you can spread around, talk to your senator about, your rep about, and talk to your friends about. So here's a prompt for you. Use your favorite AI, ChatGPT, Grok, Gemini, whatever you're using, and use this prompt. Trump gave a national address Thursday, July 16th. It was based on Iran and election integrity. So give me 3 to 5 important policy announcements that came out of that speech, and give me 3 talking points for my friends tomorrow and 1 talking point to send to my senator or my rep. Create the texts to send to my friends, create the emails to send to my reps. I think you're going to be amazed by what you get. It's going to make your life a lot easier. You're going to get a summary of Trump's speech, which is always easier and faster. You're going to get some smart stuff. If you want something that's entirely neutral, all the studies show that the most neutral platform by far is Grok. It's X's AI. It's not Gemini. It's not ChatGPT. Those are liberal platforms with liberal biases. So if you want neutral, go and use Grok. We're going to move on to Ask Mark and ask me any question you want. We're going to do a few questions here, but I have a few reminders and announcements before we go to that. Number one, it looks like Winston, do you have something you want to add? Winston keeps coming in. He has been fed breakfast. He has been fed dinner. So I'm not sure what his problem is, but And Doc is here too. I think they just wanted to make an appearance. They haven't made an appearance in a while. Doc, you remember when he was just a puppy and I could hold him in my lap? He's about 160 pounds now, so no more puppy. All right, buddy, go on. Go lay down. All right, so if you if you missed it, go back and watch Jeremy Boring's podcast. I had a chance to be in his podcast. We talked a lot about the Candace stuff and all the evil flying around that and what we ought to do about it. I want to announce some new polling results from Michigan. 79% support in Michigan for COS. 62% even say they would be willing to cross party lines to vote for a candidate that supports COS. Imagine that. They'll cross party lines to vote for a candidate that supports COS. That's about 2 million Democrats in Michigan. That's pretty incredible. Go to conventionofstates.com/blog and you can read that story. Right now in North Carolina, we have a letter campaign, which is a huge success. Over 200 handwritten letters. Last month, the North Carolina team delivered those letters to Senate President Pro Tem Phil Berger, asking him, just bring it up for a vote, dude. Come on. The House has passed it multiple times. Senator Berger, we just want a vote. That seems pretty fair at this point. We have an event coming up August 1st in Plymouth, Massachusetts. I'm going to be there. It is the Pilgrims to Patriots event. Kirk Cameron will be there. David and Tim Barton will be there. Bill Federer will be there. I want to see you there too. If you're on the Eastern Seaboard, you're going to love it. August 1st, go to pilgrimstopatriots.com/rededication-registration. That's a long one. pilgrimstopatriots.com/rededication/registration. Sorry, -registration. Oh my gosh. I'm going to do it one more time. pilgrimstopatriots.com/rededication-registration. Speaking of Bill Federer, he was the guest on the most recent episode of COS at Home. Go to conventionofstates.com/at-home. Next month will be our friend, your friend, our senior advisor, Senator Rick Santorum. That's the first Wednesday of each month at 8 p.m. Brand new short film from our staff writer, Jake Fay, which is called The Story of Tyranny. Hopefully you've been following Jake's series. They're incredible. The Story of Tyranny, go to conventionofstates.com. I'm sorry, Convention of States Project's YouTube or Convention of States Rumble. You'll find it there. Lots of announcements, Producer G. All right, special request from the Utah team as well. If you live in Utah, let's honor America's 250th. Go to conventionofstates.com/volunteer. Volunteer in Utah. Iowans also, not to be left out. We need you. Great team there, energized to push across the finish line. conventionofstates.com/captain to volunteer. And we're running out of time to apply for our internship programs. If you know an extraordinary young person, yes, they have to be extraordinary. We only take extraordinary young people. So if you know an extraordinary young person, go to our Emerging Leaders program at cosinternship.com. Also, Leaders Launchpad at cosleaderslaunchpad.com. That gives you a chance to work more hand in hand with the state teams. The Launchpad does. Deadline is end of July. We have an open letter to Trump. We're still hitting that hard. Conventionofstates.com/Trump. Also, never, ever forget, before this is over, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, hit the notification bell. Let's spread this around and spread the good cheer. All right, for Mark, Ask Mark anything. You can go to conventionofstates.com/Ask Mark. Lisa Winchester asks, I always enjoy listening and learning from you and COS. What made you become where you are now? What were your interests? The simplest explanation is God put his hand on my shoulder and pushed me into this. But my interests are a little bit of everything. I read a lot. You might see the library behind me. That's actually a 2-story library. It goes upstairs. There's a spiral staircase. There's a lot of books. I love to read. I've always been interested in just about everything. I'm kind of fanatical about just knowing stuff. I have a son who's exactly the same. I tend to hang out with people who like a broad range of subjects. So I think that really helps when you're going to do stuff like podcasting or battle cries, or you're going to do a lot of interviews. If you have a broad range of knowledge, it's really helpful. So I don't think I'm an expert on that much stuff. I might be an expert on Article 5, on how to build a grassroots organization. Mostly, I just have a broad knowledge base. And I think if you read a lot, and I've been reading a lot since I was a little tyke, you have a broad knowledge base. It puts you in a good position to do what I do. Bob Hagberg says, what things does the Convention of States deal with? Can the president veto it? Nope. President has no involvement in it. Congress has no involvement in it. We're calling for fiscal restraints on the federal government. So that's anything like a balanced budget amendment, tax caps, spending caps, imposing generally accepted accounting principles, anything to limit the government's fiscal power, term limits for Congress and federal officials. Remember, that means staffers and bureaucrats, the deep state, and then anything that would take power and jurisdiction away from the federal government. So, for example, saying can't have a Department of Education or Energy or Health and Human Services or HUD or EPA, all these things that the states were always supposed to do. And they already have agencies to do all this stuff. We don't need the federal government telling us what to do. I think it's unconstitutional anyway. Shelley Fialho said, would prohibiting any person not a citizen born in the United States be able to be added as an amendment? Yes, yes, and triple yes. Yahoo for sure. Absolutely. I think we need to do that because Congress isn't going to do it. We just got a bad announcement from the Supreme Court. It's just not a correct legal doctrine. And so we're going to have to correct it. You and I can correct it through an amendment. Rod Collins asked, can any part of the Constitution, including the Bill of Rights, be changed at a convention of states? The answer is not at this convention of states. This convention of states is limited to three things I just talked about: term limits, fiscal restraints, and limiting the scope, power, and jurisdiction of the federal government. That's the only things that can be addressed. Misty Harding says, what states do you have? We have 20 states. The last state was Kansas. You can go online. You could look at our heat map online, see what's passed. 50 states have filed the resolution. We have 38 states have actually passed it out of one committee or another. 27 states have passed it out of one chamber or another. 20 states have passed it completely. Kevin Stead, when your state has already approved the Convention of States, what more is there as we as citizens can do? Number one, you should still be active. We have to keep educating our legislatures because they turn over time. We want to make sure we're standing against any rescission efforts. That's a super big deal. Can't afford to lose states. Number two, our activists are involved in everything conservative you can imagine. We fight for federalism, first principles, fundamental rights. So we work on other legislation other than Convention of States in these legislatures once we pass the Convention of States resolution. Finally, again, don't forget to go to pilgrimstopatriots.com, register there, and that means I will get a chance to see you in Plymouth on August 1st, right? So much, man. So many announcements today. So many great questions. I really appreciate you guys. That's my favorite part, when you guys ask questions. So more of those. Whatever you want to ask about, I'm happy to have you ask them about it. And I'm happy to hear from you and to interact with you. That's my favorite part. God bless you guys. Thanks for joining me on the BattleCry this week. See you next week again on the BattleCry.